All right, it's time to get the final answer on this question. Do weights make women bulky? The answer is not no. The answer is it's not yes either. It's maybe. It's possibly. It could. It's not a definitive answer because there are so many variables involved. Take number one, the idea of bulky. Different people have a different idea of the amount of muscle they like on a woman and where it might be too much. So take a woman who wants to look like this. Very soft, no definition. For them, weights are going to make them bulky according to their goals, according to what they want. So let's say the girl who wants to look like this, she could go to the gym and get a trainer, and his idea of the perfect woman's body is this, and he doesn't consider that bulky. So he could tell her, yeah, you need to lift weights. And she could say, no, weights will make me bulky. She is correct, according to her definition of bulky. He'll say, no, there's no way weights are gonna make you bulky. According to his definition of bulky, they are both correct. They have different ideas of the aesthetic. What is the desired aesthetic? Different people have different ideas of what is bulky and what is not bulky. Now you might be saying, okay, you're talking about muscle, but what actually sometimes makes a woman look too bulky isn't the muscle, it's the fat on top of the muscle making her look bulky. And to that I say, you're right. You are so correct. You could not be more right. Sometimes it's the fat on top of the muscle that's making a woman look bulky. And yet I say, does it really matter? Does it really matter which is causing the problem? Let me give you a different example that isn't so emotionally charged, because this is an emotionally charged thing we're dealing with. Let's say you lived in an apartment for years that did not have any carpet, and then you move into an apartment that has carpet. After a couple months, your carpets are filthy, and you think, I've got to buy a vacuum cleaner. Go to the vacuum cleaner store, say, give me the best you have. And they say, oh, here you go. You want the Suck It 5000. You say, yeah, put that on my Quicksilver MasterCard. Get 1.5% cash back on that. Take it home, start running it on your carpet. Everywhere you run that thing, mud. Mud. Black, crazy mud. So you take the vacuum cleaner back and you say, this vacuum cleaner is broken. It does not work. And the person says, oh, no. It's not the vacuum cleaner's fault. I did some research and you have a very particular carpet that was designed in the 1950s to withstand a nuclear holocaust. It reacts with the HEPA filter in the Suck It 5000 and attracts all the dirt particles in the universe and puts them in your carpet. Would you then say, oh, the vacuum cleaner's not broken? Okay, then I'll keep it. And then continue to make a mud pit all over your carpet? It doesn't matter necessarily what's causing the problem. If you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to get smaller, if weights are making you get bigger, does it necessarily matter if it's the muscle or the fat? You're just going in the wrong direction, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Something needs to change. Now, there are some women who work out with heavy weights, they shrinky dink, they exchange fat for muscle, their bodies are comfortable being at that now lower body fat percentage, and for them, weights are a miracle. They're like, hallelujah, I found it. Their weight stays possibly the same, but they shrinky dink up and they love it. Those are women whose bodies are comfortable being at lower body fat percentages. So this would be like your ectomorphs and your mesomorphs. Now, there are some women whose bodies do not like to be at lower body fat percentages. So they could go into the gym with their friend shrinky dinks up, looks amazing, and they just gain muscle and don't lose any fat. When you're gaining muscle, a woman is actually lowering her body fat percentage. So if it was already hard for her to lose fat at that body fat percentage she was at, now she's at an even lower body fat percentage, the body could fight even harder, letting go of those last bits of fat. And so she could actually just end up with a bunch of muscle under the fat, and she just ends up looking bulkier. That would just be because some women, their bodies are not as comfortable being at lower body fat percentages. So adding muscle will actually make it harder to lose those final pounds, harder to get smaller. Whereas another girl, she shrinky dinks right up, she exchanges the fat for muscle, her body's comfortable being at that lower body fat percentages, and she loves it. All women are different. This is like the general gist of this whole video. All women are different. We can't be all lumped in one big category and it's the same for everyone. And I find it strange that people seem to be able to accept that in men. They can accept that some guys just can't gain weight for anything, they stay small, and some guys can just beef right up, but then can't accept the variety in women. No, women are the same. Men can be different, but women have to be the same. No, women also vary the same way. And those differences bring us to genetics. Some women are genetically programmed to gain muscle more quickly. That could be because they have a different ratio of type 1 to type 2 muscle fibers. That could just be a higher hormone level. They have more testosterone. This is Misty Copeland. She's a ballerina with the American Ballet Theater. She's naturally, genetically just inclined to be more muscular. Here are the other dancers in the company. They don't have the same degree of musculature. So you could put all the ballerinas in the American Ballet Theater company in the gym, have them lift very heavy, and Misty's gonna get fairly big and defined. And some of the other girls might not get that way at all. It's the difference in genetics, which also brings me to the next subcategory in genetics, and that is body proportions. Some women's bodies can hold more muscle and still look aesthetically pleasing than others. Some body proportions can't take as much muscle before they'll start to look a little blocky and bulky. Here's Corey Everson, Ms. Olympia, amazing. She's taller, so she's got kind of a smaller head in proportion to her body. When you get to shorter girls sometimes have a larger head in proportion to their body. She's got broad, wide shoulders. She's got a long torso. She's got a narrow torso, so she's more like a pear shape. And then she's got long arms and long legs. This type of a body proportion can take a lot of muscle and still look very aesthetically pleasing. Let's take away this and give her a different body proportion. Let's give her a bigger head in comparison to her body. Let's shorten her neck so it's not as long. Let's narrow her shoulders, and let's give her more of an apple shape than a pear shape and make her shorter. This is what she would now look like. So here's a comparison. Here's Corey with the tall frame, and on the right is a shorter version of Corey. Now these are fairly typical body types. There are a lot of girls who have this body type when they're a little shorter. They have a shorter torso. They might be a little thicker in the middle. They might have the more narrow shoulders. Their head might be bigger in comparison to their body. Their neck isn't as long. So girls who are shorter, like those proportions, they are not going to be able to handle as much muscle on their body before it looks blocky. Whereas someone who has Corey's bone structure could put on a ton of muscle and she's going to win Ms. Olympia. So different body proportions can handle varying degrees of musculature. Now that was an extreme example. That's a lot of muscle. But if you're a teeny tiny girl and you're shorter, it might not take much muscle before it starts to look a little blocky versus having a great big frame to put it on. The next variable involved in all this is muscle history. If a woman has a history of having bigger muscles, it's going to be easier for her to gain bulk, because when you build a lot of muscle, the muscles create more nuclei. I think that's how you pronounce it, nuclei. So even if your muscle atrophies from non-use, you still have more muscle nuclei, so they can just be stimulated and go to town. So they said it especially happens if you developed a lot of muscle earlier in life. It's even a more profound effect. So let's say you were a gymnast in your teenage years and you developed really muscular legs. Well, then later in life, you may just do the tiniest little bit of something and your legs just pop right out. So muscle history actually plays a role in this as well. Then, the same way there's no singular definition of bulky, that's a matter of opinion, there's no singular definition of weights. Let's say you have identical twins. One lives in New York, one's in Los Angeles. The one in New York goes to the gym, gets a trainer, starts lifting heavy. She looks amazing. She's posting on Instagram. She's going selfie nuts. Her sister looks at her and says, "Wow, I know I can look like that. Tell me what you're doing so I can do it." She says, "I went to the gym. I got a trainer. I'm lifting heavy as I can go." She says, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it too." She goes to a gym, she gets a trainer, she starts lifting really heavy. And then after like 6 months, 8 months, she doesn't look the same way her sister does. Her sister's kind of like sleek and long. She's got kind of more bumpy bump. She might be happy with it. She might say, "Okay, this is cool. I didn't know my body could do this. This is awesome. But how come we look different? This doesn't make any sense." A lot of things can affect how much muscle you develop when you're training. There's all kinds of ideas about whether or not you need to lift to failure, high reps, low reps, all these kind of variables play into it. And also, the girl in New York could have been doing a lot of cardio, tons and tons of cardio, whereas the girl in LA could have said cardio. What do you mean cardio? You said weights, and she's not doing any cardio. So all her energy went to building muscle, whereas the girl in New York, she was doing a ton of cardio, and that cut into her muscle gain. Diet will also play a factor. If you are eating a lot of protein, or if you're not eating a lot of protein, there are certain diet protocols that you can follow that help encourage muscle gain. I mean, you could be doing the pre-workout shake and the post-workout shake. You can be doing cyclic ketogenic diets where you're doing like low carb and then you work out and then you slam the glucose and eat some Smarties and that happens. So how you're training with weights isn't just one thing. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be weights that can make you bulky. There's some trainers who train like Victoria's Secret models. They won't even let their models do spin class that can bulk up their legs. If you're a girl that tends to gain bulk and maybe have a muscle history of bulk, if you do too much like elliptical or stair climber with too much of a height on the stair, even just that, and the weight is just your body weight. Something else I want to add in the category of training. Women tend to be able to gain muscle in their lower body much more quickly than their upper body. I read some stat somewhere, if I can find it, I'll put it in the links, that women only trail men by like 10% when it comes to certain athletic performance, and that's usually lower body. So you could have the twin in New York was mainly doing upper body and maybe just body weight on lower body, and then the twin in Los Angeles, she was going to town on the lunges and the squats with the weights, and she could end up getting a lot more muscle much more quickly. So in the same way, there's no one definition of bulky, that's opinion. There's no one's very, very specific what is weights. That varies. And how you're training, your diet, how much cardio you're doing, calorie intake, macronutrients, all that can factor into your results. So the main gist of this whole thing is all women are different. Your mileage may vary. I tend to have a lot of muscle, and when I was younger, I wanted that big arm look, and I thought, ooh. And now because I'm dancing so much more, now I more have functional goals versus aesthetic goals. I'm like, yeah, I look fine. That's not the concern. I want to perform. I want to be able to dance. I don't want to be winded. I want to be fast. But in my 20s, I was doing the crazy stuff like this cyclical ketogenic diets and the slamming sugar, and I was like, I was just standing there one day, and a friend of mine, he looks at me, a male, he just goes, "You look like you're gonna kill somebody." I mean, I was big, and even now, I'm not kidding, I still have muscle from like 10 years ago, even though I'm not lifting heavy, it's still around. And one of the reasons I feel like I need to say this isn't so much to bash muscle, because my body loves muscle. I have a wider frame. I can handle a lot of muscle. My body shrinky dinks. When I gain muscle, I get smaller. But for a couple reasons. For one, I think right now there's just sort of this like one size fits all prescription. Oh, you want to lose weight? You have to gain muscle because muscle burns more calories than fat, and so you'll burn more calories, which is overrated and malarkey, and that's a separate video. We'll talk about that later on. And then so it's like, no matter what your body proportions, no matter what your genetics, no matter what your aesthetic goals, no matter what your functional goals, no matter your anything, here's your one size fits all prescription. Lady, you need to lift weights. And if she says, no, that'll make me bulky, then there's this, you're so wrong. Like she gets slammed, like you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong. She's not wrong. Weights do not give her a look that she wants, and she becomes bulkier than she would like to be. And that's her definition, and she's got every right to it. So it bothers me when women feel they can't say this. They can't say weights made me bulky because they're gonna get slammed. No, you don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong. That's impossible. I just don't like that. I find it very disempowering to women. And I love right now that we embrace so many different body types. I love that there's so many women who are, in CrossFit and like rolling over the tractor tires and that's awesome. But at the same time, we don't want to go in the opposite direction where now it's like there's soft shaming, and if you want to be soft and just want to be feminine, oh, you're just like, really? You're not a strong woman and you're wrong. So I just want to embrace all women being allowed to look the way they want to look and to be able to own their body and say, this is how my body works. This is my body. I understand it. I know it, and not have someone else tell them, no, you don't know your body. I know your body better than you. You're wrong about your body. That is so disempowering to women, and I don't like it. I feel like there's so much emphasis on this. I have to like scream it from the rooftops. No, you can get bulky. It is possible, but I'm not the only one saying this. Tracy Anderson, She also warns women against too much muscle if that's not the look they're going for. She says women should only have a 3-pound weight maximum if they're just looking for a tone-defined arm and they just want to get smaller. Someone else who's been saying this for years is Rusty Moore. She does a whole program called Visual Impact that is specifically for people who want to be toned, they want to be fit, but they are worried about getting the bulk. And he says, yes, that is a possibility. So you need to know how to train to not do that. A lot of people are turning to weights because they want to lose fat. And they're told, well, if you want to lose fat, you need to gain muscle because muscle burns more calories than fat, which is overrated and doesn't mathematically make sense. That's another video. And the main thing, if you want to lose fat, is diet. Diet, diet, diet. Diet is 82.37% of weight loss. I made that up, but just believe it. I totally made that up. But it's so much diet. So you gotta lock that down first. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Make sure you subscribe. A lot of videos are coming. I'm planning on doing some high intensity training ballet videos. So that's coming. Make sure you subscribe and I'll see you later.